So I'm seeing a whole lot of discussion about this, both Locked on LSU discussion in the comment section and on Twitter among LSU fans. So we need to address it today. Brian Kelly is not going to get fired. Brian Kelly should not get fired.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, well, thank you for making Locked on LSU your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Plus, you can also check us out on YouTube as well. Same name, just search Locked on LSU in the YouTube search bar and hit that subscribe button so you'll get notified as soon as Locked on LSU drops. We're going to hit 3,000 subscribers by the Alabama game. We have just about a month. I know that we can get there. I believe in you. You believe in me. We can all do it together. But let's get into this, because I've heard a lot of discussion amongst LSU fans, in person, online, people that I know, friends of mine, people that I might not know, calling for Brian Kelly's job. Now, look, I get it. I understand. Losing a game in the fashion that you lost it on Saturday night is frustrating. It's a frustrating feeling. It's an angry feeling. And you want results, and I get it. I get it. Brian Kelly, lost the Florida State game for 2 years in a row. I get it. I understand. You got blown out by Tennessee last year. You got blown out on the road at Texas A&M. You got blown out by Georgia in the SEC championship game. You got blown out by Florida State week 1. You gave up 700 plus yards to Ole Miss last week. You're now sitting 3-2 on the season. I get it. I understand. The expectations at LSU are incredibly high, and they should be. Because that's this program. The expectations for this program aren't to go 9-3 every single year and just hope and pray that that's good enough to get you to the SEC championship game. No, this is a national championship program. Those are the expectations. I get it. I understand your frustration. I'm right there with you. I'm just as frustrated. But Brian Kelly's not going to get fired. And Brian Kelly should not get fired. Like, I'm hearing people talking about how LSU should go after Deion Sanders. Please. Like, come on, people. Come on. Let's go ahead and remind everyone what Brian Kelly has done so far in his tenure at LSU. In his first season, he beat Alabama and won the SEC West, went to the SEC championship game, when Alabama had the best quarterback in all of college football. Now, I know that wasn't a flawless season last year. He still dropped the game to Florida State, the clunker. He had the clunker against Tennessee, and the unexpected, horrendous game at Texas A&M. I know it wasn't a flawless season, but did you expect it to be? Because I didn't expect that team to win the SEC West. My expectations absolutely were exceeded in year one. So if you want to play revisionist history and act like for some reason LSU was entitled to something that they absolutely were not last year, be my guest. But understand that you're living in a fantasy world if you thought that what LSU did last season by any means was disappointing. I understand that this year LSU fans wanted to win a national title. I get it. I mean, I'm guilty of talking about it in the offseason, looking at the talent that this team has. Look, 100%. I'm with you. But Brian Kelly told you that you were a year away. Brian Kelly told us, got up at the podium and said, we are a year away from being a national championship caliber program. I ignored it. I did. And you probably did too. A lot of people wanted to, because it's not what we wanted to hear. Because what we wanted to hear was talking about how good this LSU team is. And look, this LSU team is good. This LSU team has a lot of talent on this team. I get it. But Brian Kelly told you, we don't have enough depth. We don't have enough pieces. I think we all wanted to overlook the issues that the secondary had going into the season. But those were all convenient things to ignore in July and August. Those were all issues that were easy to overlook whenever you could talk about the fun and fancy and shiny things about this team. But the truth is, Brian Kelly told us that this team had inherent flaws. We just chose not to listen to him. That's not his fault. Look, I said that I want Matt House fired, and I do. Because I don't think that you can have that kind of performance on Saturday night and keep your job. That was the worst defensive performance statistically in the history of LSU football. Let me say that again. That was the statistically worst defensive game ever by any team that has ever worn an LSU jersey. And we had Bowling as the defensive coordinator just a few years ago. That was bad. Saturday night was worse. And so, yes, that does fall on the shoulders of the head coach. It all falls on the shoulders of the head coach. It starts at the top. But one bad defensive, not one bad, I take that back. It's now four bad defensive performances doesn't mean that the head coach should get fired. That means that the head coach should go out and find a new defensive coach to lead this team because clearly the message has fallen on deaf ears. But a defense being bad does not mean that Brian Kelly should lose his job. It means the defensive coordinator should get his job, just like last year, the special teams was atrocious. That didn't mean that Brian Kelly should lose his job. That meant that the special teams coordinator lost his job. You bring in a new special teams coordinator in John Jancic, and now all of a sudden special teams doesn't seem to be that bad. Brian Kelly exceeded expectations in year one. In his first official recruiting class, the 2023 recruiting class, is the 6th ranked class in the country. The 2024 class is currently ranked at number 10 in the country. And early signing period hasn't even started. I expect that recruiting class to get pushed up even higher in the rankings after the early signing period. Right now, 8 of the top 10 ranked players in the state of Louisiana are committed to go to LSU. Now, I'd love for that number to be 10 out of 10. I'd love for Donovan McKinley, the number 1 player in the state of Louisiana, to be committed to LSU and not Texas A&M 100%. But 8 out of 10 of the top 10 ranked teams in this players in the state, I'll take that. That's better than the previous regime did in the state. It's better than the regime before that was recruiting in the state. The emphasis of recruiting in state, as much emphasis as this regime has, as Brian Kelly has, is more emphasis than we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years. Look, it takes time. Probably more time than we all would like to admit. It takes time to build a program. Now, you can build a team, and you can do that through the transfer portal. And I do believe that in order to achieve the goals that we all have for this team, you're going to have to supplement your recruiting classes with transfer portal classes. I mean, that's just an inevitability of college football. I don't think that you can be successful in this sport without utilizing both the transfer portal and recruiting out of high school. But Brian Kelly has done a good job so far. And I don't think that we acknowledge enough what Brian Kelly took on in this job. How bad of a position this program was in once Coach O left it. I mean, you had less than, less than 40 scholarship players. You had no depth. Recruiting wasn't in the greatest place. This team was in shambles. This program was broken when Brian Kelly stepped in. That was less than 2 years ago. And you've already won the SEC West. You've been to the SEC championship game. You've got 2 top 10 recruiting classes under your belt. You've got some of the top players in the state that want to come play for your program. You're 3-2. Look, the season's not over. It doesn't look good, and I don't feel good about the season, and you shouldn't either. I mean, what we saw on Saturday night, of course that's not going to breed confidence. But that doesn't mean that you fire a head coach a year and a half in that has a proven track record of winning at this level. I think that he should have a little bit of time to bring in his guys, to establish some depth, like he said he needed time to do at the beginning of the season. Now, Matt House, he can go. He's not the head coach. He's the coordinator whose job is to coordinate the defense, and he hasn't been doing a very good job of that. Brian Kelly, should not be fired. Coaching changes, though, happened a couple days ago after the Ole Miss game. What does that mean for the defense? How much can that really fix? Is it putting a band aid on a bullet hole? Or was it a necessary move that needed to be made? We'll get into that coming up next. All right, I want to tell you about bird dogs because bird dogs make you look so freaking good. They are stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted and snatched look. I know we've all been working throughout the summer, getting our beach bods, getting our pool bods, and we want to show that off. Bird dogs do that for you. They do kind of the exact same thing that maybe like a Lululemon short would do, but they fit so much better. They fit better than the regular shorts that are made of like a stiff restricting cotton. They're the perfect marriage of a Lululemon workout short and a khaki short because they invented cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki shorts, but they also stretch so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Plus, bird dogs use an anti stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. So they're the perfect thing if you are going out in the golf course, if you're running errands, if you're going to work out, if you're going to a football game, if you're spending the day with your kids, maybe they have soccer games, maybe you're going to the zoo. I don't know what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, bird dogs are the perfect option. But they're so incredibly versatile because they look so nice too. So you can wear them. Maybe you're going to a nice lunch or a nice dinner, you're going on a date, you're going to work. Bird dogs are the perfect option. So one reason why I love my bird dog so much is so often with women's shorts, the lining on the inside is so tight and it will squeeze the heck out of my legs. Bird dogs, however, the fabric in the liner is so incredibly comfortable and stretchy and it moves with me. And I can wear them for any occasion. I wear them running errands, I wear them going on walks with my friends, I wear them just hanging out and sitting around the house. They are the perfect option for really any day. And I don't know about y'all, but where I live, it is still so incredibly hot. So bird dogs are the perfect option of, hey, I can still wear something incredibly comfortable and I'm sweating and it's really hot outside, but my bird dogs aren't constricting me. They're not made of a fabric that's going to make me hot. Actually, it does the exact opposite. It cools me down. So go to birddogs.com/locked on college or enter promo code locked on college at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/locked on college for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. Well, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, just a heads up, college football season is here, if you didn't know. And this season, Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On YouTube channel will go live at 11 a.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every single day. So find Locked On College Football Kickoff live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern or 10 a.m. Central if you're in Baton Rouge on any Locked On College YouTube channel, including Locked On LSU. You will not want to miss it. Let's get into it. I mean, all of you people saying Brian Kelly should be fired, shame on you. I mean, like, what more do you want? Do you want to win a national championship in year 2? That wasn't going to happen no matter who was the coach. All right, yeah, you had to pick up pieces via the transfer portal just to have enough players to play in the secondary. All right, this roster had some serious deficiencies, but it's not just about the roster. Because that defense on Saturday night, that's not just roster issues. That's coaching issues. Because I didn't think anyone was thinking that this defensive line had roster personnel talent issues, because it doesn't. It has coaching issues. So Brian Kelly brought in a little bit of help because it was announced earlier this week. I believe it was Ed Daniels that reported this, that Pete Jenkins has been brought in by Brian Kelly to coach up the offensive line. So if you're not familiar with Pete Jenkins, he's a legend. He is an absolute legend at the coaching ranks and the NFL ranks. And if you are thinking of like anyone who's a defensive line guru, well, that's Pete Jenkins because he is a career defensive line wizard. I mean, he's been around for forever. He was at LSU for a long time in the 80s. He came back in the early 2000s, then had a stint, been around the SEC, been around college football, had a couple stints in the NFL, came back to LSU in the 2016-17 season. But he has been a consultant, a defensive line consultant at several programs across the country in the NFL. I mean, everyone in the coaching circles in college football at the NFL level, they know Pete Jenkins because he is a defensive line guru. I think you could say he's one of the best, if not the best, defensive line coaches in the game of football. So I admire the decision from Ryan Kelly to acknowledge that you have a problem and you want to fix that problem. Because, and I also acknowledge that, admire and acknowledge the fact that Brian Kelly knew that he didn't have that guy in house. Because I can acknowledge when I cannot fix problems that I have. Like if my car is leaking oil, I don't know how to fix that. I'm not a mechanic, but I'll go to a mechanic to fix that for my car. Because I'd like to think that I'm not a doofus and try and fix it, whatever's going on with my car. So I can admire Brian Kelly acknowledges that he had a problem and acknowledge that he did not have the in-house solution. Funny that I'm using the in-house solution because Matt House is not the solution. Fun little Freudian slip there, I guess. That he didn't have the solution in place to help fix that problem. So he brings in who he thinks is the best option to be able to fix that problem, and that is Pete Jenkins. Just a little bit of context here. In 2016, when Pete Jenkins was brought back to LSU after a 15-16 year hiatus away from Baton Rouge, Arden Key had 12 and a half sacks on the season. That was an LSU record at the time. I do believe that might still be the record for most sacks in a single season for an LSU player. Devon Godchaux had 6.5 sacks on the year. Overall, that team had 36 sacks on the year. To put that into context, the 2019 team had 37 sacks. The 2018 team, who I actually think that defense was better in 2018 than it was 2019. The offense was just significantly better in 19 than it was in 18. That 2018 team had 34 sacks. Let's look at Georgia, 2022 national champions. I think that was one of the best defenses I had ever seen. That team had 35 sacks on the season. So just a little bit of context of these Pete Jenkins coach teams. I mean, like there was some serious juice and some serious talent on those teams. I mean, Arden Key, Devon Godchaux, both of those guys are now in the NFL. I now cover Arden Key in the NFL, and he is a beast. Just like this team has a whole lot of talent on it, whether it's Harold Perkins, whether it's Mason Smith, whether it's Whit Weeks, whether it's you name it. This team just needs somebody to unlock that talent. And Pete Jenkins has been able to do that, not just at LSU, but at several other college football programs across the country, not just at the college level, but at the next level as well. You know, this defense, and I don't think, I'm guilty of it. I don't think that I really gave enough thought to how much this defensive line really needed some leadership. You know, it's not Brian Kelly's fault that Jamar Cain decided to leave to go to the NFL and, you know, be a coach for the Broncos. Funny how, you know, Sean Payton's poaching a lot of Louisiana talent to bring to Denver. And it's no one's fault that Jimmy Lindsey got sick at the beginning of the season and had to leave. That's nobody's fault. But maybe bringing, you know, giving defensive line coaching duties to John Jancic just wasn't the right move at the time. Maybe John Jancic, between coaching outside linebackers and coordinating special teams and coaching the defensive line, just stretched him a little bit too thin. And that's no disrespect to John Jancic. I think he's a heck of a coach. But, you know, you need a little bit of help there. And I at least admire this team, and I admire Brian Kelly for acknowledging that. Now, I think it's a little bit too late. I don't know if this defense is just one Pete Jenkins away from getting back into the conversation and being able to win out in the SEC West, maybe even getting to Atlanta again. I don't know if they're just one Pete Jenkins away. I don't know if it is indeed just trying to put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole of a problem that's just a little bit too bad to fix right now. But you got to try something. Can Pete Jenkins work his magic enough this week that LSU's defense is able to contain Brady Cook and Luther Burden in this Missouri offense this weekend? I don't know, but it's worth a shot. And at this point, the defense is so bad that I am truly willing to try anything. The other note on that I want to get to quickly, Pete Jenkins is 82 years old. But I think Pete Jenkins has still got it. So I don't want to hear any disrespect from LSU fans of, kind of dragging Pete Jenkins' name through the mud or saying that he, at his age, isn't going to be able to contribute. Like, I don't think they'd be bringing him in if they didn't think that he still had it. Because I think that Pete Jenkins is just is that kind of guy, that kind of coach. So, look, you got to do what you got to do. I admire the move. Let's see what you can do with it. Let's see how much you can unlock from this defensive line. Now, there's another question and point that I've seen brought up by a lot of LSU fans, and that is, why bring in a defensive line coach? Why not bring in a secondary coach? That's where we need the most help. And that's what I want to get into coming up next. I want to tell you about FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads and player props, over-unders, and so much more. Now, if you're looking ahead to the LSU game this weekend, LSU hitting the road at Missouri, 6.5-point spread right now. LSU is a 6.5-point favorite, but the over-under is currently listed at 64.5. We'll break down this game throughout the rest of the week. I have no idea how this game is going to play out. I thought I knew this team. I guess I really didn't. But what I do know is take the over. These are two really good offenses that can both run and throw the football, but also two defenses that have really struggled so far. So I think it's going to be yet another shootout. Take the over and do it on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, well, thanks again for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. LSU brings in Pete Jenkins as a defensive line coach, and look, I think it was a good move. Is it going to fix everything? Probably not. I think your defense is a little bit past gone, but I think that it can help. I do, because I think that Pete Jenkins is just that good of a coach, and he has enough of a track record, both at LSU and other places, to fix some things, to maybe provide some much needed leadership and guidance on the defensive line. But a lot of people have asked, why not bring in a new secondary coach? Because the secondary is really struggling. And you're not wrong. Like, the secondary is struggling. But here's my take on it. The secondary is what it is. Like Brian Kelly said, no one knew was walking through that door that's going to help us. The secondary is what it is. We knew the secondary was going to be a concern going into the season. Depth and talent. Well, now in terms of depth, you've lost Greg Brooks, likely for the season. And I hate that, and I wish him nothing but the best and a quick recovery, as always. Lost Greg Brooks for the season. Zy Alexander left the Ole Miss game with an injury. But the players that you brought in to add into that secondary came from Southeastern and Marshall and Syracuse. And that is no disrespect to Andre Sam and Zy Alexander and Deuce Chestnut in the slightest, because those guys have been working their butts off. And I believe in my heart of hearts that they're doing everything they can for this football team. But there comes a certain time where, the level of talent at Southeastern and Marshall just simply is not the same level of talent that you need to be successful in the Southeastern Conference. So your secondary is what it is. You got who you got. You can coach them up as much as you can, but sometimes you just get out-talented, out-worked, and out-toughed. Is what it is. I think that you can still salvage the defensive line. I don't think that you're even scratching the surface of what you can get from this defensive line unit. I think that Matt House and Brian Kelly mismanage Harold Perkins. Maybe Pete Jenkins can come in and figure out the best way to use Harold Perkins. I don't know what's going on with Mason Smith. Maybe he's just still not 100%. Maybe something's just not clicking with the defense. I don't know what's going on with Mason Smith, but Mason Smith has not been a force that we have expected him to be. Maybe that's something that Pete Jenkins can come in and work with because they've got the talent. We know they've got the talent. The defensive line has 4 and 5 stars all over it. It's just a matter of managing that talent and coaching up that talent. That's what Pete Jenkins can do. This defensive line, I'm not going to say fixed because I don't think it's a matter of being just broken and then being fixed, but I think it can get better because it's got a heck of a lot of talent. And you've also got some young guys. Deshaun Womack, a young and inexperienced true freshman that has undeniable God-given talent. I'd love to see what Pete Jenkins can do and how he can work with him. So I think that's why. I don't disagree with not bringing in a secondary coach because I don't know how much better your secondary can get. I know that your defensive line can graduate not just to the next level, but like to the next level and the next level and the next level and the next level and the next level. Because right now, I looked, let's see, let me pull out my handy dandy notebook over here. You've got the 102nd ranked rush defense in the country. With a defensive line like that, you got no business being the 102nd ranked rush defense in the country. Now, you're the 108th pass defense in the country. That might make sense. But I think that you can do a lot better than that because you just have the talent to do so. So let's say you're 102 rush defense right now. What if you get to 50? I don't know. I'm not asking you to be elite. I'm not asking you to be the best in the conference. I'm just asking you to be a bit better. Maybe living a little bit more to your expectations. Maybe that's the difference between a win and a loss on Saturday night in Oxford is the 102nd ranked rush defense versus the 51st ranked rush defense. That's the margin of error in this league. That's how close that game was, and that's how close some of your games might be in the future. If you're going up against an offense that has the ceiling of a Missouri or an Ole Miss or maybe even a Florida. I don't know. Who knows? But I think that's what you're looking at here. So I don't disagree with the decision to not bring in a secondary coach, but we'll see what Pete Jenkins can do. Overall, my message of the day, Brian Kelly's not going anywhere. Nor should he. Nor should he. I think he's one of the 5, 6, 7 best coaches in all of college football. Give him some time. I think we can afford him that. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you for making Locked On LSU your first listen every single day. Coming up on tomorrow's podcast on Locked On LSU, we will chat with the hosts of Locked On Mizzou, do a full LSU Mizzou preview when the Tigers travel to Columbia on Saturday. All that coming up on tomorrow's edition of Locked On LSU.